Well, it's time to address the situation that we have right now where there is a war against Christianity and allowing people to go to church. So stick with me, folks, and I'll be right back and we'll talk about it. Hey everybody, this is Deb with Truthification Chronicles, and I actually recorded this video probably, it was last Sunday on the 17th, I believe, but so much has happened and I knew things were starting to happen. I didn't have the full picture, so I wanted to wait until I got more information, and there's been so much coming out. Oh my goodness. So let's get to it because there's tons that I need to show you. Okay, first of all, I found this old article. This is from 2017. It says, Pelosi said, Democrats do the Lord's work and Republicans dishonor God. Very interesting, and I'll leave the article down below so you can read the whole thing, even though it'll probably make your stomach turn. And I want to remind you that this is coming from a person who has received a pre-excommunication warning from the Pope himself in 2009. So yeah, she was told by Pope Benedict that she needed to mend her ways and stop supporting abortion and same-sex marriage and everything, and she did not do it. So as of now, as far as I understand it, she's not allowed to receive communion, which says that she's in that stage moving towards excommunication. So yeah, but it doesn't seem to change her, and she still believes that they're doing the Lord's work. I don't know how you can think that, but I'm telling you, we've got so much going on here, folks. Oh my goodness. You probably already heard this. I'm going to play just the first part where President Trump makes his announcement because it's going to play into everything else that we have going on here. So here you go.
The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention is issuing guidance for communities of faith. I want to thank Dr. Redfield and the CDC for their work on this matter, and all the other work they've been doing over the past, what now seems like a long period of time. Today I'm identifying houses of worship, churches, synagogue, and mosques as essential places that provide essential services. Some governors have deemed liquor stores and abortion clinics as essential, but have left out churches and other houses of worship. It's not right. So I'm correcting this injustice and calling houses of worship essential. I call upon governors to allow our churches and places of worship to open right now. If there's any question, they're going to have to call me, but they're not going to be successful in that call. These are places that hold our society together and keep our people united. The people are demanding to go to church and synagogue, go to their mosque. Many millions of Americans embrace worship as an essential part of life. The ministers, pastors, rabbis, imams, and other faith leaders will make sure that their congregations are safe as they gather and pray. I know them well. They love their congregations. They love their people. They don't want anything bad to happen to them or to anybody else. The governors need to do the right thing and allow these very important, essential places of faith to open right now for this weekend. If they don't do it, I will override the governors. In America, we need more prayer, not less. Thank you very much. Thank you.
He just walks off. I think that's so great that he just left them because there's really nothing else that he needs to say. Now, this was streamed on Friday, I believe. So, yeah, that's what he had to say. And he's right that the pastors care for their people. It's not like they're going to open up and make it a dangerous place for their people to be. They're going to do the best they can to make sure their people are safe, because that's what pastors do. Pastors care for their flock. I mean, that's just the nature of the job. So I really appreciated what he had to say here. Now, of course, the media and all the liberals and the Democrats out there are going, oh, he can't overrule the governors. He can't do that. Yeah, well, you know what? He might not be able to, but Barr can, because it's unconstitutional. But we're going to talk about that later as we go on, because, oh, y'all don't know what's been going on probably in Chicago, because, we're going to discuss something that's happening there to some churches that, again, probably you have not seen in the news. And I think you need to be aware of it. Well, here's one from the Blaze. Pastor tears up cease and desist order during sermon. God tells us how to worship him. Nobody else gets to do that. If we settle for permission, we will never have liberty again. And this was this Stacy Shiflett, pastor of Calvary Baptist Church in Dundalk, Maryland, on Tuesday read from an intimidating cease and desist letter he said he received from Baltimore County's Department of Health and Human Services, warning that the church could be subject to a fine of up to $5,000 if further in-person services were held in violation of executive orders. So I'll leave this article. You can read the whole thing down below, but these letters that they're getting, and he's not the only pastor, we're going to see, but they're really intimidating letters. They're meant to intimidate. They're trying to bully them into not having services. And of course, Newsom in California, he's got to be part of all of this too, and his state's reopening plans could violate religious freedoms. This is a good article here, and it's about the Justice Department says, hey, things have to change. Now, this right here is a tweet. Let me bring it up right here. And this is from the DOJ. DOJ's letter to California Governor Newsom on civil rights and the COVID-19 pandemic. We believe that the Constitution calls for California to do more to accommodate religious worship, including in stage 2 of the reopening plan. And here's the actual letter. If you click on these, you can see it, but I did this so you could see it a little better. This was on May 19th that they sent this, and it is from the Civil Rights Division. So it is from the Department of Justice. I told you Barr's going to start stepping in because constitutional violations are happening, and it's time for them to stop. So this is not from Barr. It's from, I forget, it's one of the assistants. We are writing to you to raise several civil rights concerns with the treatment of places of worship in Executive Orders N3320 and N6020 and documents relating to the California reopening plan. Of course, we recognize the duty that you have to protect the health and safety of Californians in the face of a pandemic that is unprecedented in our lifetimes. You and other leaders around the country are called on to balance multiple competing interests and evaluate constantly changing information available to you about COVID-19 and make your best judgment on courses of action. Attorney General William P. Barr recently issued a statement on religious practice and social distancing in conjunction with the Mississippi case in which the Department of Justice participated regarding restrictions on worship. In the statement, the Attorney General emphasized the need to practice social distancing to control the spread of COVID-19. He also noted that temporary restrictions that would be unacceptable in normal circumstances may be justified, but even in times of emergency, when reasonable and temporary restrictions are placed on rights, the First Amendment and federal statutory law prohibit discrimination against religious institutions and religious believers. Thus, government may not impose special restrictions on religious activity that do not also apply to similar non-religious activity. Simply put, there is no pandemic exception to the U.S. Constitution and its Bill of Rights. So then it goes on, and this is page 2 of it. Then they lay out the case here for how it is applying different restrictions to these faith-based services. So it just is very interesting in how they lay out the case. And here it says, the Department of Justice does not seek to dictate how states such as California determine what degree of activity and personal interaction should be allowed to protect the safety of their citizens. However, we are charged with upholding the Constitution and federally statutory protections for civil rights. Whichever level of restrictions you adopt, these civil rights protections mandate equal treatment of persons and activities of a secular and religious nature. And then on the very end of it, this is the last part, it's Eric S. Dryden, who is the Assistant Attorney General, who's writing this. And so he talks about what they're going to do. Religion and religious worship continue to be central to the lives of millions of Americans. This is true now more than ever. Religious communities have rallied to protect their communities from the spread of the disease by making services available online, in parking lots, or outdoors, by indoor services with a majority of pews empty, and in numerous other creative ways that otherwise comply with social distancing and sanitation guidelines. We believe, for the reasons outlined above, that the Constitution calls for California to do more to accommodate religious worship, including in Stage 2 of the reopening plan. So this is the letter, and here are the different people, the U.S. attorneys and everything that are part of that. So, very interesting that that's what they sent out. Anyway, we're going to talk a little bit about some Romanians. Now, I do not speak Romanian, so I have to rely on the English versions of this that I've seen and the people that I know. I have a friend who speaks Romanian. Well, she's a U.S. citizen, but her parents came from Romania. So I wanted to present this to you because it's Romanian churches in Chicago that are leading the fight for religious freedom right now. And there's a reason for it. Because they saw how communism came into their country and how it took over and what it did to the churches. They saw it firsthand. And then they came here to be free. And what happens? They're facing the same thing. They're seeing it come in. So they're at the front of this big thing that's going on in Chicago having to do with these different churches and their freedom. Now, this is their main page. A lot of it's, a lot of it's in Romanian, so I don't know what it says. But this is a donate button. So if after everything I present, if you decide you want to help them because they are in a court battle right now with Pritzker, who is the governor of Illinois, and possibly even with the mayor of Chicago, Lightfoot. So anyway, this is the button. That's what that actually says. You could translate it if you want to, but that's what it is. It donates to this church. This Elim is the name of the church. And this is their pastor. Now, he did a series of statements. I'm going to play just a little bit of this one right here. This was the first one. It was on May 14th. And then he did an update on the 16th and another one on the 22nd. Yes, it's in English. Okay, so here it is.
Greetings. May God bless you all. Governor Pritzker, Mayor Lightfoot, and Alderman Rodriguez, this is what I would say if I met you. My name is Candace Ionescu, Senior Pastor at Elim Romanian Pentecostal Church in Chicago. We closed down the church for 2 months. We wanted to be educated about the virus and the whole situation. We wanted to keep our people safe. We waited on the elected officials for guidance and comfort, and we offered support, guidance, and comfort ourselves. In short, my reasons for disappointment, we were never acknowledged. Our needs and objections were never considered. We were never consulted. And my reasons for civil disobedience, your path to reopen churches is arbitrary. Your path to reopen churches is ambiguous. Your path to reopen churches is unrealistic. And your path to recovery is excluding the needs for the human soul. Now, what if? What if you keep churches shut down for another year, maybe more? What if you take an aggressive stand against us? What if you don't amend your plan and bring some clarity, urgency, and sanity to it? I will not stop and I will not be silenced. We will have services this coming Sunday at 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. And I invite you to come and see how we take temperatures, how we maintain 6 feet bubbles and all other precautions. Many churches will follow suit sooner rather than later. I stand with dozens of pastors and religious leaders that today organized a rally with the purpose of communicating their concerns about your ordinances and restrictions imposed on churches. They were encouraged to open their churches this coming Sunday, and many will. You will see open rebellion and people acting in frustration with no guidelines, implicitly no social distancing and no other precautions. Look at the demonstrations and sometimes spontaneous rallies throughout the country. Look at the other churches opening their doors in defiance. You say that your drastic measures are meant to save lives. We don't want anybody to die either. But if you wait until every place is to be 100% safe, there's no such place. Your recovery scheme will last forever.
He goes on and really does an excellent job here. And I would recommend watching these statements, but I need to let you know kind of what went on to make this happen, because so much has been happening to this particular church. This guy's been very outspoken, and here's an interview that they did. I'll leave the link to it down below. I'm not going to play this one, but it's a 7-minute, 41-second video that is interviewing him about the situation, and he gives explanation for what they're doing and why they're doing it. It's not that they're just being, off the wall, just trying to be unruly or irritate the government. It's not that at all. They have specific reasons, and I think what they're doing, if you saw the measures that they were taking, it's just totally right. And when you think about how you can walk into the grocery store and you can walk into Lowe's or you can walk into Walmart or wherever, and they don't have these same precautions, but it's okay for them to be open, then you'll understand why this fight is happening. Because religious organizations, churches and synagogues and mosques even, are being treated differently because they're religious, I guess. And that's why President Trump had to make the statement that he did. But let me go to a thread that's on Facebook. I know some of you hate Facebook, but stick with me here. Now, I know it looks a little different than it normally does. It's not full screen, but I just felt like I didn't need to show you all the rest of the garbage around. But anyway, I wanted to show you this guy right here. And he has it set on public, so I don't think there's any problem with me sharing this. And he wants to get the news out. Well, if you look at this, he was mentioning what happened in Kentucky. Well, I think you all know, I think you all know what happened in Kentucky, that they had the church that was being fined for having that drive-in service. And so that has been remedied. Well, that's May 9th. Okay, now that little clip I showed you from this pastor of the Romanian church was on the 12th, I believe. So he gives a good chronicle of it, but he gives several different posts. So what I'm going to do is I'm scrolling, but I'm going to cut all the scrolls out. So this is in response kind of to what you saw, or maybe something that happened before you saw the DOJ letter. This was on May 9th. And he says, courage is contagious. The bold stand of our pastors in Chicago, Maine, Virginia, and Kentucky is igniting a revolt for freedom across the land. 3,000 churches in California have now signed a declaration telling Governor Newsom that they will begin to defy his discriminatory church closing orders and will reopen their churches subject to social distancing and safety guidelines as of May 31st, the day of Pentecost. If Governor Newsom is hell-bent on keeping the churches closed while abortion clinics, liquor stores, and law firms are open, he will have to build bigger jails. Liberty Counsel is co-sponsoring the California initiative. If you're in California, check to see if your church is part of this growing list. If it is not, ask your pastor and church leaders to pray about what the Lord would have them do. Courage is the willingness to take a stand, even if it means that you are standing alone. I am deeply thankful for those that stood from the beginning, and I am also grateful for those that are standing now. May liberty ring across the nation. And there's an article here. California pastors vow to defy Governor Newsom and reopen. Churches are part of the answer, not the problem. And then on May 9th, he posted this one. This afternoon, an Obama-appointed judge in Maine denied our emergency request for an injunction against Governor Mills to stop her state troopers from arresting Pastor Ken Graves at tomorrow's outdoor service. The court said government has the power to ban even outdoor gatherings, and there's no problem with other, quote, essential places being open. This is not surprising. Same thing happened with our Obama-appointed judge in Kentucky before the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals stepped in to right the ship. Within 10 minutes of this decision, we filed an appeal to the First Circuit Court of Appeals in Boston. This is the second most liberal appeals court in the nation after the Ninth Circuit. We have a tough path ahead, but we will travel it quickly. We pray for a win on appeal, but the good news is that even a bad decision from the First Circuit could create what is known as a circuit split, a disagreement between two appellate courts, First and Sixth Circuits, who reach different results on the same issue. This may end up being a fast track to the Supreme Court. Whatever the path and whatever the outcome, we will press on. And Pastor Ken is holding an outdoor service tomorrow, prepared to face the consequences. Please pray for him, for the Chicago pastors, and for all who are counting the cost and standing boldly tomorrow. And that was May 9th. And then on May 10th, ready to open. Watch the first 1 minute, 45 seconds of this video to see the safety measures one of our church clients in Chicago has taken to keep its members safe as they reopen Sunday. And that's what we just watched with Pastor Ionescu. I would feel safer here than at Walmart any day and twice on Sunday, literally. Here's the bottom line. No one loves the flock better than the shepherd, and no governor or government can care for the church better than the church. The rest of the video is a short message in Romanian by the pastor of this church. Please pray for him and all the other pastors who are taking a stand this Sunday. Okay, this is not exactly the same one, I don't think, but it's similar. And even the one that I showed you at the very end, it was in Romanian. So if you want to learn Romanian, you can watch the whole thing. Then we have this one. He puts it to the pastor. Servant of the living God, has your God, whom you serve continually, been able to rescue you from the lions? And that's from Daniel 6:20. The answer this afternoon from all the pastors who have taken a bold stand in Chicago, Maine, Virginia, and Kentucky is a resounding yes. The church assembled and worshiped God collectively with more precautions in place than Walmart. Stories are coming in of God working to bring light and hope through the courage of these pastors and their churches. And as of now, there have been no arrests. Of course, these pastors remain in peril of arrest at any time until we prevail and restore the Constitution in each of these lawsuits. We will not tire. Pray for our team right now as we feverishly work to finish a major brief for our Chicago lawsuit, which the court has ordered us to file by 5 p.m. Chicago time today, the Lord's Day. Yeah, they wanted it by 5 p.m. on a Sunday. Our ox is in a ditch, and if you don't know about that, that you can look up Luke 14:5 on that. And continue to pray for these churches and pastors and for the flame of freedom to burn brightly. All glory to God. I mean, look at this picture. You can even see how they were spread out. People aren't sitting next to each other. It's not... There are less people there than in grocery stores and Walmart and everything else. So it's nonsensical. Okay, so this is on May 10th. I told you there's several of them, but I really want you to understand what's happening. Favorable coverage from the mainstream media for our Chicago churches, noting the serious safety measures the churches have taken and the deep impact the gathering is having on a people starved for communal worship. I was in tears, said the woman who asked to remain anonymous. It was so wonderful because we've been denied public worship for almost 2 months now, and it's important. We filed our 6 p.m. brief with 1 minute to spare. That's typical nowadays. We expect an initial decision from the court in the next couple of days and hopefully before next Sunday. Pray. And then here's an article from the Chicago Sun-Times. And then May 11th, he says, in this open letter to other pastors and believers, Pastor Christian of Elim Romanian Pentecostal Church in Chicago, one of our plaintiffs in the lawsuit, that's the one we watched in the video, makes a compelling case for the need for urgent action. He also relates that the local elected officials have indicated they will give him a stern talking to tell him to stand down. He and I remember those days from the motherland. Bring it. And this takes you to a blog post here that you can go to. Now, here's an interesting thing that he says. Interesting fact, while Chicago's mayor is threatening to shut down and jail Romanian-American pastors, legal immigrants, for exercising their fundamental constitutionally guaranteed right to free exercise of religion, Chicago prides itself of being a, quote, sanctuary city for illegal immigrants. From Chicago's sanctuary city policy, partnering with ICE would go against our mission to make Chicago the most immigrant-friendly city in the country and turn ours into a community of fear for immigrants. Furthermore, enforcing immigration law would take away needed resources and time from the Chicago Police Department. But evidently, stopping people from going to church doesn't take any needed resources away from them. Oh, it's crazy. So illegal immigrants can flout the law, but legal immigrants cannot, if the mayor makes good on her promise to arrest these pastors, which thankfully she has not done yet. She kept saying it. I mean, she said it like several times. I wonder if an illegal immigrant breaks the law and holds or attends a religious service, with proper social distancing, of course, would he or she be arrested? Chicago would do well to become a sanctuary city for the Constitution. I thought that was pretty good. Okay, then this was on May 12th. Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot has summoned Pastor Christian Ionescu and me to a meeting at 5:30 p.m. today. She told the press yesterday that she would seek to, quote, educate us before taking, quote, more aggressive action. Please pray for this meeting, and particularly that she would have an open mind about the fundamental principles and rights at stake. We approach this meeting willing to dialogue, but not to beg for constitutional freedoms that are not hers to give or take away. I know that many of you have strong feelings about the mayor, but I invite only respectful comments here. We must pray for those who lead us, even as we disagree with their policies. Pray that Mayor Lightfoot would have wisdom to deal righteously with a difficult situation. That's her, in case you haven't seen her before. And then later that day, yes, canceled. Chicago Mayor Lightfoot has canceled our 5:30 meeting and has given up on her efforts to educate the pastors. We sent her a very polite email telling her we were eager to discuss the situation with her. Pastor Christian Ionescu will publish that email on his blog soon, and that's the blog that was linked to a couple of posts ago. We told the mayor that we were interested in her suggestions and recommendations on what else the church can do by way of social distancing, precautions, etc., and that we want to become her partners in developing a safe model for churches to implement to reopen ASAP. We also told her politely that the only preconceived and non-negotiable principle we would bring to the meeting was that the churches will remain open indefinitely. Apparently, and as we suspected, this is what she wanted to re-educate us on, and she decided rightfully it would be futile. The cancellation notice we received tries to save face and says the reason for the cancellation is because the mayor is afraid that what she says might be used against her in court. Yeah. But she says she may reconsider speaking to Pastor Christian Ionescu alone without his lawyer present. Oh, gee, that sounds like Struck and Pientka going in to talk to Flynn. You don't need no lawyer. No, you don't need a lawyer. Oh, yeah, right. I wouldn't talk to this woman without a lawyer. Did you get that? A mayor who is a lawyer, who is getting ready to have her cops arrest a future criminal defendant, wants to speak with that future criminal defendant alone, without lawyers, for fear that what she says can be used against her? This is the craziest thing I've heard today. Mayor's cancellation notice also threatens that if the services continue, she will do all that is necessary to ensure that the laws regarding these matters are upheld. You know what this means. Well, and again, I've said this before, these mayors and things, they're not putting out laws. They're putting out recommendations because laws have to go through the process. And that means it has to go through the legal system set up to make those laws. And that's not just an edict put out by these people. So they think that they are more than they are. And then the next day, exposed. Not to be outdone by Mayor Lightfoot's heavy hand out of court yesterday, Governor Pritzker was busy with his own deceitful machinations in court. Thankfully, it backfired in a spectacular way. On Sunday afternoon, we filed a sworn declaration from Pastor Christian Ionescu detailing for the court the meticulous and strict social distancing and safety measures employed by the church, driving a large constitutional stake right through the heart of the opponent's argument that churches are reckless and cannot be trusted like Walmart and Home Depot to keep their people safe. It was powerful, and the court immediately required Governor Pritzker to file a response by yesterday, Tuesday at noon. In his response, Governor Pritzker pulled the first photo below from a newspaper and said, I'm paraphrasing, of course, "Aha! These guys are lying, Judge. Just look at Pastor Christian in this photo. He is obviously closer than 6 feet to the guy preaching at the pulpit, and he's going to kill someone. You gotta stop this, Judge." He even drew a nice diagram for the court on the photo. Now, I'm going to show you the photos in a minute, but here, let me go through on this. There is one problem with this gotcha, and it is profound. The newspaper photo was obviously shot from the very back of the church, and from that distance, it suffers from perspective distortion and foreshortening, a photography effect that makes far objects appear closer together. Is the governor that not smart, for lack of a better polite word, to think that Pastor Christie went through all that trouble to keep everyone separate in the church, only to flout his own strict 6-foot rule right in front of the church, in front of the cameras with news reporters there? Of course not. This was deliberate deception through and through. When we received this response, we sprang to action. Within 2 hours, Pastor Christie took the other two pictures below, showing the court that the distance between the two available outside seats at the pulpit, the inside seats were blocked off, and between the pulpit and the seats is more than 6 feet. He even took this nice video demonstration for the court to show the actual distances, and none of this was a surprise or dumb luck. It was carefully thought out in advance and perfectly executed by a church that can be trusted to care for its people. We filed all of this with the court at lightning speed, and the governor ended up falling in his own trap. Psalm 141:10 says, "Let the wicked fall into their own nets while I escape safely." May God bring us victory. We expect a decision any minute, and may He be glorified no matter the outcome. Thank you for your continued prayers. Okay, so there it is, and like I said, there's a little bit of it so you can see. Depicts what appears to be church leaders standing within 6 feet of each other without face coverings. Oh no! They actually got a tape measure and measured it out. Yep, and then they measured where the seats were. And everything.
This is where my assistant sits. And now, from the seat, my foot is 1 foot. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 feet to my chair, because this and this chair and this table is between us. So you have my assistant there and me there. Then from this chair going towards the pulpit, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I'm still able to go a little further, and I'm facing the congregation. And that is my seat, and that is his seat.
I mean, you can't have it much more clear than this. They did a great job coming back at it. So then he goes on, and this was on the 13th. Breaking, the first court in Chicago has sided with Governor Pritzker and denied our request for an injunction against his unconstitutional church closing orders. This is disappointing, but not unexpected. The same thing happened 2 weeks ago in Kentucky, where we were required to appeal the bad decision and prevailed on appeal. We already filed the appeal to the 7th Circuit Court of Appeals. We are seeking an emergency injunction from this higher court. This is by no means a defeat. It is a mere temporary detour on the road to ultimate victory in court or out of court, which God will provide in his good and perfect timing. God always gets the last word and laugh. May he be glorified no matter the outcome. The churches whose members have left everything behind and selflessly fled communist oppression to find freedom for their families in America take particular offense to the court's unfortunate mischaracterization of their fundamental right to worship as selfish. Mihet said, "The act of communal worship is a quintessential act of selflessness and exercising, protecting, and vindicating fundamental First Amendment liberties is always in the public interest. The Constitution does not go into exile during a pandemic." And he said the Clinton-appointed judge who denied our emergency injunction against Governor Pritzker in Chicago this week, in his spare time is an adjunct professor at Northwestern University's Pritzker School of Law. Oh, it is just so corrupt, our entire legal system, I think. His employer bears the governor's name because the governor donated $100 million to his employer. Unlike tenured professors, adjunct professors can be fired at any time for any reason or no reason. So our lawsuit put the judge in the untenable position of having to embarrass and restrain his employer's namesake at the risk of adverse employment consequences. This fact should have been disclosed by the judge to the parties and the public, but was not. On May 17th, he wrote this. And by the way, in case I didn't mention this, this guy is their lawyer for several churches. He's actually doing lawsuits for churches in various states. So anyway, this is the lawyer for the Romanian churches. He says, "Dirty tactics in Chicago. Mayor Lightfoot's heavy hand is on full display. She's ordered a parking ban on all streets for 9 blocks surrounding the churches." Ban notice in first picture, and I'll show you the pictures in a minute. I have to readjust the screen slightly for that. She then had the aldermen send letters to all residents to tell them that the reason they can't park their cars on the streets outside their homes and must move them immediately or get towed is because of the churches. And that'll be in the second picture. The mayor knows that the churches have their own private parking arrangements and that the members do not park on the streets. So this parking ban has nothing to do with keeping people away from church. Instead, it's a transparent attempt to incite hate and violence against the churches and their members by blaming them for an unnecessary and malicious parking ban. Mayor Heavyhand, that's what they're calling Mayor Lightfoot, lacks the courage to arrest pastors and parishioners for going to church because she knows the public relations disaster that this would cause. So instead, she is content to incite hatred against people for exercising their fundamental right to worship, even as she claims that she wants to, quote, save lives. The churches will not be intimidated. They are used to this sort of tactics employed by the communists in their motherland. Check out the huge banners, photo and video, and I'll show you that in a minute, that one church worked through the night to place on its building to remind people of what is at stake here. Services are taking place this morning and a press conference addressing this issue immediately afterwards. Pray. Okay, this was from last Sunday. And so let me show you these different documents here. So yeah, here is the sign that they put up. No parking. And look, it's for 5/17, which was Sunday. And it was from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. for an event. Yeah, gee, wonder what that event was. Now, those were the signs that were put up. And then this was the letter that they sent out. And it says, "Dear neighbors, earlier this afternoon, I learned that no parking signs had been affixed to approximately 9 blocks near the Philadelphia Romanian church located at there. And these are the blocks that were involved. The no parking signs will be in effect tomorrow, May 17th, which was a Sunday, last Sunday, from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. Residents who have a vehicle parked on either side of the street should move their vehicle before 7 a.m. as it is possible that the vehicles will be ticketed or towed. It actually says they'd be towed. These no parking signs were put up at the direction of the mayor's office and in response to knowledge that the Philadelphia Romanian Church plans to hold one or more religious services tomorrow in violation of Governor Pritzker's and Mayor Lightfoot's stay-at-home directives. Oh, it's like, blame the church. This is why you're not being able to park here, because of the churches. Dun, dun, dun. So the churches put up banners. I mean, look at them. Church is essential because the care for our eternal souls is essential. We can't keep church closed for 1 year. Our physical health is important, so is our spiritual health. Here's a little video of what they had, and they had some, different things that they put up. This is Saturday night, the 16th, before the service the next day. And so they, these are not small buildings. They're big, and they had room. So, they put up different banners here. It is definitely a protest, and as I'm saying, because these Romanians know what it's like to have their religious liberties torn from them. And then here's where they put up the Constitution, the First Amendment. So, they're really doing what needs to be done. And they're making the protests that they should be making. I'm a little surprised that the American churches have not been more upset about this. And that it's taken these Romanian-Americans to step forward and to say, this is against our constitutional rights. And then later on that day, on the 17th, he posted this: breaking, Chicago police are currently blocking the entrance to the private bank parking lot across the street from Elim Pentecostal Church to prohibit members from parking their cars there for the 7 p.m. service. The church has had a contractual right to use this parking lot for the last 18 years. The police confirmed that Mayor Heavyhand has ordered them to do this after her street parking ban backfired against her this morning. The police are now trespassing on private property and interfering with private contractual rights, not to mention grossly violating the Constitution. They are making our legal case better by the minute. Look at these images and let it sink in. Will you remember where you were when you saw the cops blocking people from sheltering in God's house in the land of the free? Yeah, see, they had it blocked off, and there are cop cars everywhere. I mean, weren't they complaining about not having enough cop cars, not having the police spread out doing other things? What is this? So then on May 20th, look at this. Disorderly conduct. Elim Pentecostal Church and Logos Baptist Church have both been criminally cited, twice each, for the 2 worship services they held this past Sunday. That was on the 17th then. And because the criminal citation form does not yet have a checkbox for worshiping God or preaching the gospel, the police, at the direction of Mayor Heavyhand, got creative and cited the churches for disorderly conduct. That's what the police cite you for when you drink too much and get in a fight with others at the bar. If this weren't so tragic, it would be extremely comical. Pastors and churches cited for disorderly conduct because they held safe, socially distanced worship services under the most careful and ordered conditions possible? Let that sink in. Each citation, and there will be more, carries several $100s in fines to be established at a future court hearing where the pastors and churches will be required to appear. In the meantime, the federal court in neighboring Wisconsin has issued an injunction against the Small Business Administration, forcing it to include strip clubs in the coronavirus financial relief program because, these are actual quotes from the court's order, nude dancing is a form of expression protected by the First Amendment. 2, we have here a general law singling out a disfavored group, strippers, on the basis of speech content. And 3, the loss of First Amendment freedoms for even minimal periods of time unquestionably constitutes irreparable injury. The strippers have shown that their inability to obtain taxpayer relief money will prevent them from exercising their First Amendment right to present erotic dance entertainment. I promise you that I am not making this up. I could not be this creative. Pastors get cited for disorderly conduct and fined hundreds of dollars for holding responsible, socially distanced worship services, while strippers must be treated equally and given taxpayer funds so that they can exercise their First Amendment right to present exotic dance entertainment. If you think there is something wrong with this picture, join and pray for Liberty Counsel, and that's the firm he works for, Pastor Christian Ionescu, Pastor Daniel Chu, and the Romanian churches of Chicago as we fight for justice and to right this terrible wrong. This will not stand. Let me show you these documents. And there it is. Yep, disorderly conduct right there. Is that something else? I just can't believe this is happening in the United States. Oh, and there's the other one. Just crazy. You know, look at this. Like $100, $200 fine. Oh my goodness. So much. This is our country. This is what's going on. And there's so much going on. I mean, there are several posts in between here. But this one, you know, very happy that President Trump took that stand. But, of course, they don't expect it to all be over because they're not dealing with people who take those kinds of statements from the president and actually, you know, do what the president says. So that's what he says here. President Trump's bold recognition that churches are essential does not automatically restore freedom in every state. It is still up to each errant governor to come to his or her senses and follow the president's lead. If they refuse, our president has several options at his disposal to force compliance, including directing Attorney General Barr to bring lawsuits on behalf of the United States, which, you know, the letter to Newsom is a first step in that direction in case they have to. It was kind of like a warning shot. Directing his administration to regulatory agencies to condition receipt of federal funds on compliance with this, with his and CDC's guidelines treating churches as essential, and to deny federal funds to errant governors, which they're not going to like. So that's possibilities too. And all of this may end up going to the Supreme Court, one of these cases somewhere along the line, because it's been pretty bad. And then here's the one about the Mississippi church that was burned down to the ground. And, you know, a big reason that this is going on is because people have been so brainwashed to see the COVID thing is so extremely dangerous that anybody that doesn't believe them or pay attention or follow all the guidelines perfectly are seen as the enemy. And that reminded me of this. Yeah, you've got to see this. It's only a minute 55, so I really don't feel comfortable using any of the clip in it. Besides, you got to see the whole thing to get the entire effect. But this is Kevin James, in case you don't remember him. He was like in The King of Queens. So it's a fun little short, but it drives home the point so well. I mean, it does a really good job. Whoever did this, minute 55, well done. Well done. But it's on COVID snitches. And that's kind of the feeling that I had. I had an experience with this just the other day because I went to our local Lowe's to get some flowers to put at the cemetery for my grandparents for Memorial Day. And it's outdoors, at least that part of it. And there were probably, 3 or 4 or 5 people that were wearing masks. And the rest of us weren't, because we don't have a high incidence of it here at all. I mean, not even positive cases. It's barely anybody. So it's not a big deal here. But, people had their masks on. When we get up there to the checkout, and you're standing your, official 6 feet away, because they have little markings on the floor and everything, or the ground, so you can see it. So we're standing there, and somebody made a comment about something not really protecting the cashiers, and they were laughing about it. And I said, yeah, it's like the masks. They don't really do anything. Oh, you should have seen the looks I got from the people that were wearing the masks. They were not happy with me at all. Not at all. So anyway, very good little clip here. And then I wanted to show you this one that was from Candace Owens, because does really point out what's going on here. And it makes a huge impact when you show it like this, because this comparison is huge. And, you know, there's more people, 72.79 million people in these states, and only 51.11 million here. But look at the total dead. I mean, it's huge, huge difference. So I did want to show you that one. And then this one I thought was interesting. I don't know who this person is, but again, they have it on public, so I figure if it's public, I can share it with you. COVID-19 facts: the virus can travel 6 feet. It cannot travel 6'1" or greater. It can live on all surfaces except anything that comes in the mail from Amazon. It does not live in Target, Walmart, Home Depot, Lowe's, or any grocery store. It is only deadly in bars, restaurants, small businesses, hair salons, and especially churches. And it cannot live on your food as long as you get it to go. That's good. I don't know who made it up, but that was pretty good. And then this one I just had to share with you too, because this is very true. I mean, here they take this girl who is 17. She has zero experience or knowledge skills in all of the microorganisms and biology and all the stuff that doctors know, but she gets all the airtime she wants to talk about COVID. But oh no, let's not let these doctors talk. Can't do that, because they have too much experience. 100 years of experience are routinely censored from corporate media. So kind of interesting on that. And again, I'll leave all these links. I don't know how it's going to work when you try to take these links if you don't have a Facebook account. So I don't know. I didn't try it being logged out. But since they're public, they should be viewable. I hope. Okay? And this one came out as I was recording the others. That's why it kept bumping down on me. Look at this. Breaking red alert. 1 day after President Trump declares churches essential, Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot is now threatening to, quote, destroy without process or judicial action churches that hold services tomorrow. And that would be the day that I'm recording this final one. And so Sunday. In a letter delivered to pastors today, that would have been Saturday, from her Department of Public Health, Mayor Heavyhand warns the churches, quote, this notice to abate is being served upon you as the leader of your congregation. Given the heightened risk of spread of COVID-19 in gatherings of 10 or more, you are hereby ordered to abate immediately. You are prohibited from having any in-person gatherings contrary to the executive order. You are required to cancel all gatherings contrary to the law. If you continue to host gatherings in violation of the executive order, the City of Chicago will take all necessary measures to abate the nuisance. All capital emphases supplied by me. The letter ends with this chilling threat in the very last sentence. Any future gatherings conducted contrary to the order will be considered a failure to abate, and the city will take steps necessary to abate, including summary abatement. In a case called City of Kankakee v. New York Cent, the Illinois Supreme Court has defined summary abatement under common law as follows. Summary abatement would mean to put down or destroy without process. This means the inspector can, upon his own judgment, cause the alleged nuisance to stop on his own authority and effect a destruction of property at his discretion. Therefore, when Mayor Heavyhand threatens that she will take all necessary measures, including summary abatement, she is threatening to take whatever action she wants, up to and including the destruction of the churches, without any due process or judicial proceeding. It's hard for me to believe I am writing these words in the land of the free. We have alerted the Department of Justice, and we now have a clear reason to petition the Supreme Court of the United States immediately to intervene. The churches will not be intimidated. Services will proceed as scheduled tomorrow. They appreciate your prayers, and we do too. So there you go. She has gone off the deep end. I'm not going to pull all these up, but yeah, that's what she's saying. And it's a scary thing that, again, this is happening in the United States. Now, I realize this whole thing was kind of long. I'm sorry for that. But all of these things, I think, are necessary for you to see just what's been going on in Chicago. And I'm pretty sure you haven't seen these things in your local news. Unless you live in Chicago, maybe you've seen a few articles here and there. But this is what's happening in our country right now. This Democrat mayor and the governor, Pritzker, have just gone power mad. And they're doing all this under the pretense of saying, oh, gee, we're just protecting people. Oh. Anyway, so that's what I wanted to share with you on this. And it's going to take me a while to get all of this edited and put together because there's lots of little pieces. But I just needed to get this out to you. So even if it doesn't come out until Monday, I really felt like you needed to see this. So anyway, that's what I've got for you on this one. I want to thank you for stopping by, and I'll see you later.